Italian. You've been trading with the Germans for 7 years. You're wrong. Now, on my authority, I hereby sentence you to die. You'll be executed as a convicted spy. No, no! Bang, bang! Die! Die!
Cyril, you mustn't shoot your sister in the drawing room. How many times do you have to be told?
We were playing the execution of Mata Hari. I had to shoot her.
Well, can't you play nicely, then? I remember seeing you playing nicely sometimes. I don't know what's got into you lately. Well, go on.
All right. Come on, Bertha. Hello, Uncle Harvey.
Good afternoon, Bertha.
Well, isn't it distressing, Harvey?
Yes, quite. Only I suppose it's just something to do with the primitive instinct or something.
It seems they care nothing at all for anything but bloodshed and gore. I can't tell you how it worries me.
Well, they're not alone, at least.
What do you mean?
Item in the Times. Well, see, I had it just a moment ago, I'm sure. Yes, yes. National Peace Council. Here. Have a look at it. Here.
In the view of the National Peace Council, it is very difficult and very dangerous to give our children regiments of fighting men and squadrons of dreadnoughts.
Here.
Quite.
Sorry, go on.
At the Children's Welfare Exhibition, which opens at Olympia in 3 weeks' time, the Peace Council will make alternate suggestions to parents in the form of peace toys. Oh, listen to this, Harvey. Instead of lead soldiers, there will be miniature civilians. Instead of guns, there will be plows and the tools of industry and progress.
Well, it's an interesting theory right enough.
Oh, Harvey, it may be the solution to all my worries. I've got an idea. You're coming down again to us at Christmas time, aren't you?
With pleasure, as always.
And you always bring the children such generous gifts. Well, I was thinking, this time perhaps...
Huh? By George, I'll bring them the toys of peace.
I'm Jim McAndrew. This is Camera 3. Today we are prescribing a tonic for the American parent who may be suffering from a slight case of post-Christmas blues. Our story takes place in another country, England, at another time, the earlier 1900s. And these two facts are heartening evidence that we are not alone. Our authority is the late British short story writer H.H. Munro, better known under his pen name of Saki. As part of his pungent and eccentric legacy, Saki left this bit of wisdom to the great and perplexed community of parents. When we seek by gifts to instruct and to please at the same time, we are liable to failure on both counts. And now back to Camera 3's adaptation of Saki's story, The Toys of Peace.
Children! Cyril! Bertha, answer that bell, will you please? You untie your Uncle Harvey this instant, you hear? Aren't you ashamed of yourself? And Bertha, you know better. He's probably brought you the most wonderful things for Christmas.
Oh, hello, Eleanor. My train was late.
Oh. Shall I take your coat?
Thank you.
What's in the boxes, Uncle?
Oh, let him sit down first.
Oh, that's all right. These boxes contain the last word in toys for little children.
I bet it's the Albanian Imperial Regiment. No, I'll bet it's the Somali Camel Corps. That's Arabs on horseback. They've got jolly uniforms and they fight all day long. And all night, too, if there's a moon. Shh.
Now then, you go ahead and untie that one first, Cyril. And you untie that one, Bertha.
Very generous of you, Harvey.
What's this?
Oh, Cyril, that's, what is that, actually, Harvey?
Well, it's a model of the Manchester branch of the Young Women's Christian Association.
Oh, lovely. Isn't it lovely, children?
Are there any lions?
Any what?
Lions! In the pictures of Roman history, wherever there are Christians, there are lions to throw them to.
Well, actually, it isn't that sort of a Christian. Well, perhaps it is, only not in the same way. That is,
Well, tell us about this one, Harvey.
The fort! No, it's the palace of the Sultan of Albania. See, it's got no windows, so the passerbys can't fire in at the royal family.
Well, actually, it's a perfect scale model of the celebrated new garbage disposal plant, a municipal dustbin, over in Chelmsford.
How delightful. How perfectly delightful.
You see, all the refuse and litter of the city is collected there, instead of lying about and injuring the health of the citizens. Yes. Well, you see, the whole idea is to stress civilian life in its most peaceful aspects.
What's this?
That, Cyril, is John Martin Hill.
What's a John Martin Hill?
Oh, Bertha, silly. John Martin Hill was a very distinguished gentleman.
Exactly.
What did he do?
Well, he is a foremost authority on political economy.
Why?
Well, he wanted to be. He thought it was a useful thing to be.
Who's this?
Robert Raikes, the father of the Sunday school system.
Is it a lady?
Oh, let me see that one, Bertha. Yes, it is a lady. How nice.
What did she do?
Well, that is Mrs. Felicia Dorothea Brown Hemans, Bertha. She was a poetess and a memorable Englishwoman. The boys stood on the burning deck, whence all but him had... fled. The light that broke the battle's...
Here's a man with a shovel.
That's a spade, Cyril. He is symbolic of the spirit of British agriculture. Oh, and, that's, well, no, this one here, that's John Herschel, the eminent astrologer.
Oh, I know this one. It's Roland Hill.
Hill?
Yes. I remember him from school. He introduced the system of penny postage.
Oh. Oh, and this is a ballot box. You see this slit, Cyril? Well, votes are put into that at election times.
What's put in it at other times?
Nothing. Well, here are some tools of industry. Here is a ventilator for ventilating sewers. And here is a model beehive. Oh, and these little round things are loaves baked in the sanitary bakehouse.
Are we to play with these things?
Of course you're to play with them. They're toys, and toys are meant to be played with.
But how?
Well, for example, here is a sanitary inspector, and here a district councillor. Well, you might make them contest a seat in Parliament and have an election.
With rotten eggs and fist fights and ever so many broken heads and noses all bleeding and everybody drunk as can be.
Nothing of the kind, nothing in the least like that. The votes will be put into the ballot box, and the mayor will decide and count them. Now, here's an official of the local government board. He'll do for the mayor. He will declare which man has received the most votes. And then the two candidates will thank him for presiding, and each will say that the contest has been conducted throughout in a perfectly straightforward fashion. And they part, with expressions of mutual esteem. There's a jolly game for you two to play. By George, I never had such when I was young.
I don't think we'll play with them just now.
He didn't mean it that way, Harvey, dear.
I think perhaps I'd better do some of my holiday homework. I have to study up about the Bourbon period in France.
The Bourbon period?
Yes. I have to know something about Louis XIV. I've already memorized all his major battles.
Well, there were some battles fought during his reign, but I fancy the reports on them have been greatly exaggerated. Now, Louis was really famous for landscape gardening. The way he laid out Versailles was so much admired that it was copied all over Europe.
Do you know anything about Madame du Barry? Didn't she have her head chopped off?
She was
All right,
another
now,
great lover of gardening. By the way, if I'm not mistaken, I think the famous Rose du Barry was named after her.
All right, now, children, you can take your toys into the playroom and enjoy yourselves. Your lessons can wait till later. Tea, Harvey.
I was thinking of compiling a history for use in the elementary schools in which there should be no prominent mention of battles, massacres, murderous intrigues, or violent deaths. The awful Lancaster period and the whole of the Napoleonic era, God knows, would present problems. The 30 Years' War would perhaps best be omitted entirely. Oh, well.
It must be our great-grandfather.
What's that?
Our great-grandfather. Elijah Boat. He smashed all his Whig neighbors' hothouses when the Great Reform Bill was passed. Well, I'm sure they must inherit it from him.
I suppose so.
Well, tea, Harvey. And we'll have a look-see at the kiddies later on.
Yes, I suppose we may as well.
We'd all be quiet. Perhaps they won't sing.
Surely.
Here's Louis XIV, the one in knee breeches that Uncle said invented the Sunday schools. It isn't a bit like him, but it'll have to do. I'll give him a purple coat for my paint box later on. Here's Madame de Maintenon. She begs Louis not to go on this expedition, but he turns a deaf ear. He takes Marshal Saxe with him. We must pretend they have thousands of men. We land in Manchester in the dead of night. Then a conspirator gives them the keys of the fortress.
Harvey, what have they done to the municipal dustbin?
It appears they've punched holes in it for gun emplacements. Oh, Lord.
Oh, and look, they've dipped Sir Rowland Hill in red ink.
Louis orders his men to surround the Young Women's Christian Association. Once back at the lure, and the girls are mine. We'll have to use this Mrs. Hemans again for one of the girls. Yes. And she says never, and stabs Marshal Saxe through the heart. He bleeds dreadfully. Louis's men go in and avenge his death with the utmost savagery. 100 girls are killed. The remaining 500 are dragged off to French ships. I have lost a marshal, but I do not go back empty-handed.
Eleanor.
Yes, Harvey, dear?
The experiment has failed.
Yes, I fear it has indeed.
Perhaps
Yes.
we've begun too late.
But we're not quite finished. Saki must have known how subversive it would be to suggest that adults are always confounded by children. One grown-up fares famously in another of Saki's stories, one of his numerous tributes to the power of the imagination. And yet, this story is also sobering since it gives support to an old adage. Parents are the last people who should have children.
Cyril, don't. Come over and look out of the window, like your sister.
Why are those sheep being driven out of the field?
Oh, I expect they are being driven to another field where there's more grass.
But that field has plenty of grass.
Well, maybe the grass in the other field's better grass.
Why is the grass in the other field better grass?
Oh, look at the cows.
Why is the grass in the second field better?
Did you ever see so many cows?
On the road to Mandalay, where the flying fishes play. On the road to Mandalay.
Children,
where the
look, children. Cyril, sit here. Now, children, I'm going to tell you a story.
Oh, no.
Now, once upon a time, there was a very, very good little girl. She lived in the village of Sittingbourne, over in Kent. And so good was she that everyone who met her loved her almost on sight. Well, one day she was coming back from a spelling bee, crossing her favorite meadow, when she happened to look behind her. And lo, a maddened bull had burst from its retaining wall and was thundering after her. Help me, she cried. And you know what?
What?
The people in the neighboring field heard her. And because she was such a good little girl, they rushed to her help. She wasn't even scratched there.
Wouldn't they have helped her if she hadn't been good?
Yes, I expect so. But they might not have rushed to her aid quite so fast if they hadn't liked her so much.
The stupidest story I ever heard. Didn't even listen after the first part. It was so stupid. On the road to Mandalay, where flying fishes play. On
You're
the
not
road
much of a
to
success as a storyteller.
It's a very difficult thing to tell stories to children that they can both understand and appreciate.
Oh, I don't agree with that.
Oh. Perhaps you would like to tell her a story?
Tell us a story? Oh, yes, sir. Please do tell us a story.
Very well. Once upon a time, there was a little girl called Gertrude, who was extraordinarily good. She did all that she was told. She was always truthful. She kept her clothes clean, ate milk puddings as though they were jam tarts, learned her lessons perfectly, and was polite in her manners.
Was she pretty?
Was she pretty? Why, not as pretty as your sister, but she was horribly good. She was so good that she won several medals for goodness, which she always wore pinned onto her dress. There was a medal for obedience, another medal for punctuality, and a third one for good behavior. They were large medals made of metal, and they always clinked and jangled together as she walked. Now, no other child in the town where she lived had as many as 3 medals, so everybody knew she must be an extra good child.
Horribly good.
Yes. Everyone talked about her goodness, and the prince of the country got to hear about it. And he said, because she is so very good, she might be allowed once a week to walk in his park, which was just outside the town. It was a beautiful park, and no children were ever allowed to walk there. So you see, it was a very great honor for little Gertrude.
Were there any sheep in the park?
What?
Were there any sheep in the park?
No, there were no sheep.
Why weren't there any sheep?
There were no sheep in the park because the prince's mother had once had a dream that her son would be killed, either by a sheep or by a clock falling on him. And for that reason, the prince never kept a sheep in his park, nor a clock in the palace.
Was the prince killed by a sheep or a clock?
Well, he's still alive, so we're not sure. Not yet. Anyway, Gertrude found lots of wonderful things in the park. Ponds with blue and gold fish and parrots in the branches of the trees. And Gertrude walked up and down, and enjoyed herself immensely. And her 3 medals tinkled and jangled together as she moved. Just then, an enormous wolf moved out of the bushes, prowled into the town to see if he could catch a fat little pig for its supper.
What color was it?
Mud color, all over. with a black tongue and pale grey eyes that gleamed with unspeakable ferocity. And the first thing that he saw in the park was...
Gertrude?
Gertrude. You see, her pinafore was so spotlessly clean and white that it could be seen from a very great distance. Now, Gertrude ran as hard as she could, and she reached a clump of myrtle branches and hid herself in the thickest part just in time. And the wolf came sniffing among the branches. Gertrude was terribly frightened, and she thought to herself, if I were not so terribly good, I should be safe in town at this moment. However, the scent of the myrtle was so very strong, and the bushes were so dense, that the wolf decided to give up and go home hungry.
Did he?
No. Because Gertrude was trembling so very hard, the medal for good conduct clinked against the medal for obedience and punctuality. And just as he was moving away, the wolf heard the sound of the medals and he stopped to listen. Then he dashed into the bushes, dragged little Gertrude out, and devoured her to the last morsel.
Oh!
And all that was left of her were her shoes, bits of clothing, and the 3 medals for goodness.
Were any of the little animals in the park killed?
Oh, no, they all escaped.
The story began badly, but it had a beautiful ending.
Thank you.
That was the most beautiful story I've ever heard.
Thank
the
you.
only beautiful story that I've ever heard.
That was the most improper story to tell young children. Really. You've undermined the effect of years and years and years of careful teaching.
Well, at any rate, I kept them quiet for 10 minutes, which was more than you were able to do.
Well, come on, children, it's our stop.
Poor, unhappy woman. For the next 6 months or so, those children will assail her in public with demands for an improper story.
The author H.H. Munro, better known as Saki, S-A-K-I. Next week, an unprecedented departure in Camera 3, a program that will be completely practical. We're calling it Toward a Calm 1960. Until then, this is Jim McAndrew. Goodbye for Camera 3.
The short stories of Saki are published by Viking Press. The players today were Myra Carter as Eleanor, Laurie Main as Harvey, Mercer McLeod as the storyteller, Francie Myers as Bertha, and Carson Woods as Cyril.